Alright, y'all. In this video, I'm basically gonna go over while dying laughing over this incident that apparently, from what I've read, it happened in LA, which for some odd reason makes it even more hilarious. I don't know why. But yeah, I'm gonna do this video based on this black dude who went off on this Asian woman because apparently he gave her his business card in hopes of going on a lunch date with her, and she declined as politely as any woman probably can, considering on the premise that she was married. And I'm sitting up here looking at this I'm still tripping. The shit funny as hell. I'm sitting up here looking at this shit like, oh my god, that is so crazy. That shit was too fucking funny. Oh shit. Oh yeah, and to make it even worse, to make this shit even worse, the nigga had a list. I'm like, oh, this nigga, I'm like, my name is Frederick Douglas. I'm like, you Daffy Duck eyed ugly ass suffering succotash. What's up, man? Donald Duck looking ass nigga. Oh shit. Okay, alright. Oh my god, that was too fucking funny, y'all. Okay, so Frederick Douglass Smith had a little attitude problem because the little Asian lady wasn't fucking with him like that. And y'all already know, I mean, if y'all know my platform of videos as far as how I would go in on Asians, y'all already know where I'm going with this. Y'all already know where I'm going with this. So, I'm going to try to be as politically correct as I know how, because I'm fully aware that YouTube is going out of its way to, I ain't trying to go to YouTube jail like that. Get my video banned for saying the quote-unquote wrong thing. So let me just say this. Everything that I'm going to say is facts. Facts. And I look at vids like Mad Bus Driver and the things that he puts out when it comes to these images of black men, grouping up with cuddling up with basically non-black women. And he talks about building a Stargate with non-black women. And he'll have this array of photos of black men, like I said, cuddled up with white women, Hispanic women, and Asian women. And as much as I want to believe that shit, I have to say to myself, it would not surprise me in the very least if the vast majority of these photos are photoshopped. Especially when it comes to, you already know where I'm going with this. Y'all already know. Especially when it comes to Asian women. Now, in her defense, let me say this much. She said she was married. And there was even a photo, apparently, because she had posted on Facebook about, this horrid experience of her encountering this Negro, and the fact that, he basically went off on her, for, again, a pretty genuine reason. Like, she's married, dude. That should have been the end of it right there. It wasn't even a typical, oh, I have a boyfriend, oh, I'm engaged, or anything like that. No, she said she's married. And she even had a picture of her fiance, which, to my surprise, was actually an Asian dude. And why am I surprised by that? Because it's been a very long time since I've seen an Asian woman in matrimony with an Asian man. Because I'm more than familiar with this little syndrome that a lot of Asian women suffer from. So much so you can look it up on Wikipedia. It's there. It's called Pinkerton syndrome, by which it's basically the Asian version of the Negro bed wench, basically the Asian bed wench, where there's just this obsession, this lust that Asian women have for white men. And I have to say that it doesn't only apply to Asian women. This is across the board. Women of all races seem to have this for white men. But no other race of women exemplify this more and better than the Asian woman. The Asian woman white man dynamic is probably an even greater dynamic than that of the black woman white man dynamic. Even more so. Despite the history, I mean, there being a longer history in this country at least of the black woman white man dynamic. So what am I saying here? Well, basically at this point right now, as of now, what I'm trying to convey is that as black men, there just isn't a historical dynamic, a historical romantic dynamic between us and Asian women. There's nothing in there ain't really much in history going on about that. I mean, yes, there are those microcosmic, far few blue moon examples of you seeing some black dude huddled or cuddled up with an Asian woman. It happens every blue moon. Hell, even here, every now and then I will see that. And that shit confuses the hell out of me. And why does that confuse the hell out of me? Because I know from my own personal experiences in my own lifetime, Asians don't fuck with niggas like that. They just don't. And I'm not one, and it's not as if I've even stepped to Asian women like that. The fact that I encountered what I encountered in my lifetime let me know off the bat that maybe I shouldn't be stepping to no Asian woman. Cause you run into me, you ain't gonna find me spitting game at no Asian woman. That's a far and rare. I ain't saying I'm completely innocent of it. It's happened every blue moon. I run into some every now and then there'll be some Japanese girl that because I remember this one time, there was this girl straight from Japan. I thought she was from Vietnam. Come to find out, she was from Japan, and I'm like, damn. And she was a female bodybuilder who liked basketball, and I bet she didn't have much going on. And that's another thing, as far as I'm here to eliminate those Asian stereotypes, as far as all of them being, brainiacs and whatnot, because I bet she probably didn't have a brick in the stone for any kind of brains, because I mean, she was a musclehead and she liked basketball. But even with the strength of me knowing Japanese and me going to the gym and whatnot, she just wasn't fucking with me like that. So that's just something that black men have to understand, that when it comes to Asian women, especially East Asian women, because black men kind of have, and this just goes to show, and it goes to prove that turrets of a feather do indeed flock together. The fact that black men have a better chance with Southeast Asian women than they do with East Asian women, that in of itself speaks volumes as far as the nature of this planet. And old dude would have had a better chance if she were from Thailand or Cambodia or the Philippines somewhere, than her being somewhere from East Asia. And of all places where your ass will hit rock bottom trying to get with an Asian woman, who better to get shot down by as a black man than this Chinese woman? My nigga, you have a better chance with a Taiwanese woman, a Japanese woman, even a Korean woman, than you do this Chinese woman. And I'm pretty sure this woman was Chinese, because when I saw her Facebook page, I forget her name, but it was definitely a Chinese name. So 9 times out of 10, she's either Chinese or she's Taiwanese. And I just happen to be a student of Asia, so you ain't really gonna be able to fool me when it comes to where, I'm not like your typical silly American who sees, some yellow skin and a pair of epicantic folds and just assume that, oh, she must be from here, there, or wherever. But this just goes to show just how, it speaks volumes to, a plethora of fronts of how, of how, for one, how mad bus drivers' narrative about black men and Asian women getting together, like, on that, that's a crock of shit, basically. And that's nothing to be fucked up about. I mean, to me, the Asian dynamic has always been one that has been just weird. For lack of better words, it's just always been like, clearly I ain't got no business fucking around with these people like that. I mean, the fact that I've gone out of my way and learned, their languages, learned their history, learned even their foods and whatnot. I'm like, aside from that, that's where the line is drawn in the sand. That's it. But me cuddling up with some Asian chick and thinking that we gonna do the hucklebuck, under the sheets and whatnot, that really ain't happening like that. And the reason why that ain't happening like that is, for one, she basically, for lack of better word, she's, how they say she's for the streets, she's for the white man. And two, I'm fully aware, you listen to brothers like, elders like John Henry Clark, who tell you of this long, millennial, this shit stretches out for millennia. The tension between Asians and blacks. John Henry Clark, Dr. John Henry Clark, said that long before the European even set foot on the shores of Africa, blacks and Asians were enemies with one another. And the encounters that I've experienced with Asians are prime proof of that. And I don't mean just people. When I say Asian, I'm not just talking about these yellow-skinned, epicantic fold having peoples from East Asia, from Mongolia, from Korea, Taiwan, China, Tibet, Japan. I'm not even talking about the darker hued people who might have epicantic folds from Southeast Asia, like Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Burma. I'm talking about South Asians, Arabs, Middle Easterners, Pakistanis, even Pacific Islanders, Central Asians, like, Turkic peoples, like Mongolians, like Kazakhs, Tatars from, history's past. They're Asian too. Hindus, if I haven't brought that up, I think I said South Asians. And historically, black folks have been in it with all these motherfuckers. The Asian exclusion or the Asian expulsion of Uganda, implemented by Idi Amin. Who do you think they were referring to when they referred to it as the Asian expulsion of Uganda? They probably weren't referring to Chinese, even though if they were there, they probably got their asses up there, out of there too. No, they were referring to Indians, Hindus. Chancellor Williams' book on the destruction of black civilization, he refers to Asian invasions of Africa. Who was he referring to? Was he referring to Mongolians? Hell no, that don't even make sense. No, he was referring to Arabs, Middle Easterners. All of these people who came from whatever part of Asia they came up out of, history has shown that we as black folks have always had some sort of beef dealing with these people. Which is kind of fucked up when you think about it, because if you really go deep in history, you'll find that the founders of at least ancient Asian civilizations were indeed black people. Blacks who immigrated from Africa into Asia and created all the fly shit that you see in Asia. And the fact that you will have Buddha statues with cornrows, that ought to tell you right there. Amongst many other things, as far as African influences throughout Asia. So that in and of itself, the fact that we got this long history all throughout Asia, not just with the Chinese, not just with the Koreans, but even darker hued people. I'm talking about Arabs, Hindus. The likelihood, that in and of itself ought to tell someone who's my skin tone, the likelihood of dealing with somebody from any part of Asia It's practically slim to none. And even if you are one of these very few black men whom I see every now and then, every blue moon, dealing with an Asian woman, she might be cool with the idea of dealing with your black ass. But knowing what I know and having said what I just said, why would you want to put yourself in a position to have to deal with her racist ass family? You know somebody within her family is not going to be cool with the fact that they're dealing with a Negro. And if you're thinking that, well, I'll just deal with a darker hued Asian like a Hindustani, there have been Indian fathers who have been known to murder their own flesh and blood, murder their own daughters because they learned that they're getting married to a black man. And that's not a surprise to me in the least, because India, is kind of known as the father. I mean, actually the mother of all civilizations. They're the mother. It's known as the mother of the East and the West. The origins of racism are actually premised upon the Hindu religion. I really don't feel like going deep into it, but I mean, you just look at the fact that we're talking about a country that to this day is premised upon a caste system. So, I mean, with that said, with that kind of history and with that kind of mentality, you ain't going nowhere dealing with no Asians. Come on, dude. And you a square, and you a simp, and you what Tariq refers to as a nigga nerd? Because I'm pretty sure I've run into, even though everybody in Memphis ain't no goon. And every blue moon, you'll run into these clueless computer IT tech nigga nerds who just have no kind of clue of the world. Now, I don't know what this brother particularly did for a living, but clearly it's just the way he carries himself, it's the way he talks, the fact that the nigga got a list. You can tell that the nigga's socially retarded. You can tell that this dude clearly isn't aware of the kind of planet that he lives on. If he thinks that he can just slip a card to an Asian woman because I mean, I submit that no woman would want to fuck with a nigga like that. I mean, he just too square. And see, this is why I'm glad that I ran into the red pill. I really am. Because my whole thing is, tension is already going to be created when you as a guy are trying to initiate and you're expected to initiate contact when it comes to trying to court, members of the opposite sex. And for the longest, this shit was confusing as far as how do I step to a female, what do I say to a female. Experts used to say, just say hey. But think about it, man. It takes social intelligence to realize If a female ain't giving me nan time in the day, why would you even do some shit like that? And then finally, finally, we run into some more. I don't even want to say it was red pill knowledge. It was more of PUA knowledge as far as being or PUA game. And that was, no matter how fine she is, no matter how attracted you think you may be to her, or that you think you are to her. That's what I meant to say. Unless she's presenting ROIs, indicators of interest, you do not do what's called cold approach. You do not step to any random female who ain't giving your ass nan time of the day and try to spit game at her. You don't do that. Because if you do that, 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be no. So why waste your time? What, to get in some good practice? To get over shyness? Like, okay. But after that, after you get over the shyness of communicating with women, because I am aware that that's something that men naturally have, is at some point in their life they're naturally nervous when it comes to communicate, especially if they're attracted to the woman. But when you understand all this stuff, and you understand female nature and body language, it just stops making sense. It just stops making sense to just go up to some random woman and spit game at her. And she ain't giving. Now, she ain't playing with her hair. She ain't looking at you like she want to eat your ass. She doesn't have the glow in her eyes. You invisible to her, and you want to go holler at that. A minute prior to, she didn't even know your ass existed. And she was right there in front of you. Why would you step to any female like that, much less an Asian woman, knowing their history, knowing where you stand with them? Why would you do that? And then have the nerve to get an attitude. And then have the nerve to I'm like, see, this is exactly why. This is exactly why it pays to take the red pill. We ain't lying about this. Because this is exactly what women fear when it comes to dealing with members of the opposite sex. They fear, and for whatever reason, it being done by a Negro makes it a lot worse. Because King Richards talks about this, that when it comes to women of all races, white men pretty much have dubs on the shit. And that doesn't always go well, necessarily. Especially when it comes to specifically Chinese women, the white man and the Chinese woman dynamic, much less the Asian woman dynamic. Because there was this woman by the name of Susie Zhao up in Michigan somewhere, who got with some random white dude. Didn't know his ass from Adam. Let me tell you that I'm fully aware that this dynamic does indeed exist. This random ass white dude whom she doesn't know from Adam just walks up to her. However they met, I don't know exactly, but the fact is, he made it to home base to do whatever it was that he eventually did. And the fact of the matter is that she let him in. She let him do that. She let him tie her up, do whatever. It was some kind of sex thing with a bat, which I imagine he eventually bludgeoned